You're too low. Oh my gosh, how do we make your face higher? Up. Hi guys, how are you? I never do this. Up. Come here, bud. I want to show you my doggy. Oh, there's a boy. Love you, mean it. Okay, he's a little low right now. How is everybody? Happy Thursday. Come here. Up. Let me show you. Come here. Oh, say hi. Oh, there's the boy. Say hi, my bubbers. Say hi. I don't like this. Okay. How's everybody doing? Welcome in. Good to see you. Sorry, I'm gonna adjust some things. So, let me know if on YouTube that music is too loud because I don't even know how to turn it off. I was messing with some software today and the music came on and I don't know, it's like phantom playing. So anyway, that's what's happening. I probably should have restarted my laptop. Okay guys, so I'm gonna do some energy clearing. Happy Thursday to you. And as per usual, we're going to hop around on a lot of topics, but I took some time to meditate and pray on what would be the best topic that Spirit advises that we communicate on today. And the first topic that came up was detoxing. So there's lots of ways to detox, right? Yesterday we talked about all of our different bodies. We talked about how we have a physical body, we have an emotional body, we have a sexual body, a plasmatic body, mental body, etheric body, causal body, astral body, on and on it goes. Okay. And each of those bodies can be detoxed. And sometimes detoxing one of these bodies, including the physical body, right, can help detox multiple bodies. Hence the title today of Multidimensional Detoxing. And the importance of detoxing, besides the obvious, right? Obviously, detoxing assists and supports us to release out any negative toxins, right? Free radicals, metals. These days we're dealing with a lot of that graphene oxide, which is another thing I wanted to talk about. It also assists us and supports us to detox from trauma, energetic cords, habits, addictions, compulsions, sexual tethers, mental noise, you name it. So, today I'm going to kind of focus a little bit on how certain physical detoxing supports energetic detoxing. And before we get into that, I'll just say a little prayer and set some space. Please feel free to chime in, say hi, ask any questions you want. I'm very happy to tune into your energy if you are wanting any specific topic to be looked at intuitively. Not a problem. Okay. My name is Chloe Hudson. I have been offering intuitive counsel and telepathic communication for over 21 years. We talk about all things metaphysical here on this channel. And I'm happy to hop around, shoot the shit with you guys, run the gamut. Anything you want to bring up, we can chat it out. Okay, last one, I promise. I'll give me sage. The sage is a little bit dangerous because it drops all of these embers and I burn everything on the test. Shout out to all of my spiritual enthusiasts that have tons of burn holes in your sheets. It kind of reminds me of like high school, right? You guys know what I mean. Always there's little burn holes everywhere. Oh my gosh, so funny. Okay, so let's set some space. Thank you, Spirit, Creator of the all that is, for offering us the ability to exist, first and foremost, Thank you for your protection, your support, your love. Thank you for your allowance and your patience with us. Please always continue to help us release our naivete, our ignorance, our gullibility, our arrogance. When we get off path, please continue to help guide us and redirect us back onto the highest path according to your divine will, Spirit. I ask, Spirit, that you help magnetize and attract in everyone and anyone who would enjoy and or benefit from this discussion today. Please help me to communicate what it is that may support them. Again, through your divine will, Spirit. Please protect all of us. Filter out any negative energy, any evil eye, any sin-related frequencies. Help me to connect my heart to the purity of their hearts. And as we create and build love, peace, harmony, community, vitality, and resilience, please help us to send this out automatically throughout all space and time to everyone and anyone, everything and anything that could utilize support right now. Thank you, Spirit. We appreciate you. We love you. As above, so below, and so it is, thy will be done. All right. So if you guys have any little nuggets, I know there are a million ways to detox, but Spirit put this on my mind today, so obviously somebody needs to hear it. And for me, it is something that is a daily must now that we are dealing with so much graphene oxide, aerosol sprays, things, contaminants in the food and the water. We're constantly wearing plastics on our body. So many things that can be really overwhelming. So if at any point this conversation today is overwhelming, please withdraw yourself from it. Take a break. You know, there's a lot to think about that we can implement, though it's very easy to take on too much and feel like it's hopeless, what have you. And so little nuggets at a time. I am by no means offering an exhaustive list. I am not an expert in this field, though I am an enthusiast of healthy modalities. I've been that way for over 20 years. So, you know, as we all do, we've got little nuggets of information. And the things that came up for me today is, first of all, iodine. Do you guys know that most Americans are lacking iodine in their diet, which is not very surprising? You know, if you think about, we have this iodized salt. That is one way in which they've tried to put iodine back into our nutrition, though I don't recommend iodized salt because it's not healthy salt. You know, sea salt, all of these types of different really ancient mineralized salts are way better for you, though you can easily obtain iodine. I use little dropper bottles. Any foods from the sea are chock full of iodine. One time I went to a health food store and I was picking out everything sea related, right? I was a vegan, though everything sea related, every sea vegetable. And if any of you guys purchase this stuff, you know it's very expensive. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna spend a lot of money before I get out of this store. I get to the checkout and the cashier, she looks at all my items and she goes, oh, you need iodine. And I said, is that what it is? She said, yes, you bought everything you bought is really high in iodine. I thought that was interesting, but it didn't land. And then years later, one of my best friends is so phenomenal. She has just a wealth of information, everything health related. She's a clinical nutritionist, and she worked with a renowned doctor, Dr. Tennant, who has a patent on LASIK eye surgery. And so she's just this like machine when it comes to absorbing information. And she turned me on to iodine, and it changed my life immediately. Like literally that day, everything changed. And I say that from a feminine point of view, if you get my drift. So iodine is one thing that is really, really supportive. And I also recently learned that iodine is an extremely efficient way to help balance your microbiome in your gut, which is super cool because a lot of us understand that it's very important to be looking at our microbiome. Prebiotics, probiotics have become very popular these days, and those are just some ways that you can do that. So iodine is something that is very, very supportive for your body. Now, I do want to state that everything that I'm going to talk about today in regard to detoxing is also highly supportive of detoxing etheric entities, energetic sludge, curse energy, attacks, you name it. All of these types of frequencies, you can clear so much of that type of spiritual warfare simply by doing detoxing, and specifically parasite cleansing. So my big hack on clearing out parasitic entities and all sorts of these types of attachments is simply do a parasite cleanse. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm not necessarily going to say this is something that is supportive for you because I am not a medical practitioner, and you are a grown adult. You do what's good for you. You know, disclaimer, this is just what I do. I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, it's healthy, it's whatever, but it works for me, and I'm offering you the information of what I've learned. Do your own research, know what's good for your body, consult any health practitioner that you may trust, all right? So ever since COVID, I have been taking actually the ivermectin horse paste. I have no problem with that one. I've actually not been able to get my hand, I know you can. One time I had a link through India where I could get human-based ivermectin, and I let it be because it's pretty expensive, I think. I don't remember what it was, but the price keeps going up, and I have no problem taking the ivermectin horse paste. I've been on a steady dose of that up and down ever since, okay? I think it works great. It's fantastic. Fenbendazole is also a phenomenal anti-parasitic. You can get that human-made. It's about, there's the brand that my girlfriend turned me on to. I think it's about $60 for a 30-day dose. And I've also taken Paragon, which is, again, the horse-based fenbendazole. And again, I have no problem personally taking that. That's my own discretion. Though I am very clear that the human-grade fenbendazole was stronger. I could tell the difference. Those two are like Wappa Papa anti-parasitics that will help you purge without having to do a lot more, right? Because any of you guys have done any of these anti-parasitic cleanses, you have to change your entire diet. And a lot of the herbs that are in these anti-parasitic cleanses can, any parasite cleanse can bring things up. Obviously, you're releasing the parasites. So what happens a lot is the parasites, as they're dying, there's like this off-gassing, and there's a biofilm release. A lot of people think that the biofilm's actually parasites. It's not. That's a whole nother shebang. Though, ivermectin and fenben are two easy hacks that you don't even have to change your diet, really. And of course, always advising, stop ingesting any form of like sugar, glucose, including alcohol, anything that turns into sugar into your body, because parasites feed on that. And so you're going to counteract. As you're trying to kill them, you're going to keep feeding them. And so it's just kind of cancels each other out a bit, right? And if you haven't done parasite cleanses, if you start craving sugar and carbs, you know it's working. Don't give in. Don't give in. Keep going. My massage teacher, I used to be a massage therapist for 8 years, and my teacher, as I was in school, she was also in the middle of learning microscopy, which is the study of blood under the microscope. It's really cool. She's very much into health and all of these wonderful holistic things. So she's teaching us everything that she was really excited about while she's going through her training as we're learning massage. And the doctor she was working with, I think his name was Dr. Wright, he is a specialist in alkalinity. So she got really into alkalinity. And she was talking about her experience with detoxing. And during her detox process, which was like she was doing one of those longer processes, she started to get really sad. She was having grief and depression, and she realized, because she's a very sensitive and intuitive, she realized at one point that it wasn't her sadness, it was the sadness of the parasites dying off. And I thought that was really interesting. So that's just some food for thought, right? Another thing that's really important to detox out is antibiotics. A lot of you know this already, though antibiotics are killers of bacteria, and that includes your healthy bacteria. So it's really, really wise. If you know you have to get on antibiotics, which maybe you don't usually, because that's often an acute infection shows up, do your pre-due diligence to really consume your flora, fauna, your prebiotics, your probiotics, your acidophilus, right? Bifidus, all of these types of microbiomes that are really gut supportive, and absolutely double down on these things, including iodine. Please check that iodine isn't counterintuitive to antibiotics. I wouldn't assume so, but I've actually never looked that up specifically. While you're taking antibiotics, it's very important to replenish what it is you're killing off, okay? And of course, after. Now, that same massage therapist teacher, one day in class, she asked us if any of us would be interested to act as an example so she could show us the microscopy. And I said, yeah, me, I will. So she took a little bit of my blood and put it under the microscope and then had a projector. And she's like pointing out things, and then she points to this like little conglomerate, like an accumulation of cells. And she goes, now that's what we call a garbage bin. And I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, those are antibiotics. And I was thinking, and I told her, I said, I haven't taken antibiotics in years. She's like, yeah. And I was very healthy at that point. I was like at the top of my fitness game. I was eating really, really well. I've been a vegetarian for years. She's like, that's how long it stays in your body. And I'm also in massage school. So we're getting massage every day, which means, if you get a lot of massage, you're flowing your lymphatic system. If you don't know anything about your lymphatic system is responsible, many things, but the one thing I'm going to focus on, for dumping the top 5% most toxic accumulation in your body that is too toxic for your blood to handle. So a big role of your lymphatic system is to pull these big toxins away from your blood and then flush it out, right? And your lymphatic system moves with your glands, and there's a lot of things that we can do to keep our glands, which are pumps, moving to flush these toxins out. So I thought that was very intriguing, and that was a moment that taught me a lot about how important it is to do deep, heavy detox. Now, on that note, chelators are really, really important. Now, I know that chelation, proper chelation, is quite expensive and difficult to access. I would love to get fully chelated one day, though there's a lot of natural ways in which we can chelate in a lighter way. One that is fantastic is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a really, really easy add-in to anyone's diet, right? Chlorophyll is what makes the plants green. And usually you'll get chlorophyll, I think you can get it in a powder form, and there's types of blue-green algae. There's a lot of different ways in which you can consume different plant powders that also have chlorophyll in it, but I use the drops of chlorophyll. Now it's super green, it stains, so be careful. Anything you get on is green forever. Though chlorophyll is a very efficient way to clean your blood. And it's also really good at cleaning out this graphene oxide and mold, okay? So right now, as they are just really ramping up, and it's been happening for a long time, with the graphene oxide being introduced into our bodies in so many different ways. Now, if you got the jab, it's going to be very important that you work to chelate, because the graphene oxide was injected straight into your bloodstream. And so lymphatic flushing, chelation is going to be really, really important for you. It's important for all of us, but on top of what everybody else is going on, because yours went right into your blood, I highly suggest you do any form of chelation you can find. But all of us are experiencing it, because it's in the aerosol sprays. Like I said, it's in the water, it's on the food, it's, in the clothes, it's there's no avoiding it. And one thing that it is working to do, and we all understand there's nanotechnology. Well, we might not all understand it, but many of us get that there's nanotechnology in the graphene oxide. And when these metals come into our body, they become highly magnetic, as a lot of us have seen, and they work to, yesterday we talked about Sabrina Wallace's work, the body internet, okay? Or her work to expose and help get the word out of the body internet, which is how these, I just call them generally the controllers, the powers of be, are utilizing our electromagnetic fields as nodes. And this is all provable, guys, what I'm talking about right now. Go check out her work. She's on TikTok. She might be on other platforms, but I watch her on TikTok. Sabrina Wallace, she is phenomenal. As genuine as they get, that woman, and very, very intelligent. I mean, she just spits those facts and gives you proof. It's really, really cool. So the body internet accesses your electromagnetic fields and uses your body as a node to send Wi-Fi signals through. The more metals we have in our body, the easier it is for them to send the information. We're better conduits, okay? And this is one way the 5G actually works. It has nothing to do, and Sabrina Wallace gives you the proof of this one, 5G has nothing to do with better cell reception. That's a total fallacy. It has to do with the body internet. And so it's very important we start purging this nanotech and the graphene oxide. Now, I saw an interview years ago from a researcher who interviewed an ex-employee of HARP. Okay, if you guys don't know what HARP is, go look it up. They are doing some very, very wild things. Okay, HARP is at the pinnacle of how all of the satellite networking is happening and working to control the grid, okay, and the dome, right? They have I don't know if they're based in Alaska or one of their, biggest layouts is in Alaska, though he's talking, and he worked for HARP, I think, in the 90s or early 2000s, so he wasn't on the up and up of what all is happening now. Though at the time, they were already dabbling, obviously they've been doing it for decades and decades, in nanotechnology. And him and his cohorts discovered the nefarious effects of the nanotechnology, and he wanted to whistleblow. And as soon as word spread that he had this information and was trying to, do the right thing, unfortunately, he started experiencing, in his entire family, he said he had a big family, there's like 10 to 20 members, where they would use the energy technologies, the energy weapons, and they murdered, over 10 of his family members died acutely of heart failure. We're talking about young people, okay? And he said the only reason he survived is because in his research, he discovered that boron, which is a base mineral of Earth, boron is what he called a nanofilament replication inhibitor. And what that means is that it stops the nanotechnology from self-replicating. So if you've done any research on the nanotech, it is supposedly like kind of like Jenga pieces, okay, or like Tetris, right? They're made in certain shapes, and they're piecemeal. So the end of a certain type of nanotech will bind to another nanotech that's introduced. They have electromagnetic energy, and they find each other, in the organism that they're introduced in, and they create building blocks upon each other. Okay, and so what the boron does is apparently it suppresses the ability for the nanotech to replicate. And ever since I saw that video, I have been taking very large doses of boron every day. I've never had any effects. Again, this is just what I do. Do your own research, though that is something that could be really imperative. Though it's not the only way to detox. So I watched a specialist talk about how certain ways that she has found you can do it. One was pure grape juice, nothing concentrate, no added sugar, a swish in the mouth, a grape swish that pulled out from the mouth. And we have really porous tissue in here, right? So we can absorb chemicals pretty efficiently through the mouth. And another one is you can add borax or boric acid into your bath water, and that helps to pull it out of your body, out of your skin. And I'm trying to remember the name of the very sad, unfortunate disease that comes from a exacerbation of the nanotechnology. If any of you guys remember the name, please let me know. Morgellons. I don't know if it's pronounced Morgellons or Morgellons, but that's a really unfortunate experience that's happening because the nanotech is replicating so prolifically in somebody's body. And what happens is they turn into these tiny little, they're electromagnetic, you can see it, but they turn into like these little worms that come up out of the skin, and they drive these people nuts. I mean, it's like, if you can imagine, itching, burning, fire. And I don't mean to laugh because it's a horrible experience. I had a friend that had it, and he was just tortured. It was really, really sad. Though I have heard that one way you can kill it for good, which is again very expensive and difficult to do, is get into if you can experience an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. So like, for example, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure the difference in the technology from like a CT scan or an MRI. I think it would be more an MRI. If you could get your body into something that creates a full electromagnetic pulse, it should kill the nanotech, apparently, because they have an electromagnetic frequency. And you can prove it's nanotech because a lot of people will put some kind of a stimulant on the skin that has the electromagnetic once they get activated, they start to move. You can see it. Another thing that, well, the MRI is high magnetics, so that's one thing that you can do. But that's a really sad situation, and animals can get it too, unfortunately. And so all the more reason to do your due diligence of purging. Now, selenium is a wonderful mineral to take if you're doing any type of mold detox. So selenium is highly supportive of releasing mold. I believe it's from the liver. There's tons of these things, right? So food grade diatomaceous earth. And if you notice, a lot of these are like base minerals of earth are just phenomenally healing. Okay, food grade diatomaceous earth, baking soda, these are really easy, guys. You can get a bag of food grade diatomaceous earth for like $15 and you don't need much at all. Now be very careful with diatomaceous earth. it has to be food grade if you're ingesting it, first of all. And any diatomaceous earth is such a fine powder that you need to take care. Do not inhale it. I've actually given myself a respiratory, it didn't turn into an infection because I had a nebulizer, but I had inhaled some and immediately I felt myself, get inflamed here. It's a really, really fine powder, which is one reason it's used a lot, because diatomaceous earth is something that you would use to naturally kill bed bugs, a lot of insects. This is in the garden. It's used to mineralize the plants and the food. And the reason it's so proficient at killing bugs is because it's highly dehydrating to their exoskeleton, and the powder is so fine it goes everywhere. So it's kind of sad. It actually just slowly dehydrates them to death. Is why it works. But you can add, look up the dosage. You might want to start with like a half a teaspoon and then build up. It's probably like 1 teaspoon or to a tablespoon, but I don't remember the exact dosage. It'll be really easy to find. To water every day. Shake it up, drink that. Same with baking soda. Do a teaspoon, start with half a teaspoon of baking soda a day. It's fantastic for your body. It's a quick, easy way to do some detoxing. Look into DMSO if you guys have never seen that. DMSO is a fantastic healing agent. It's a solvent. You need to do your research on DMSO because it has the ability to bypass the blood-brain barrier, which means that if you're using an application, for example, it's a healing agent on its own, though I like to use it to push any type of ointment or something that I'm using through the skin. So, for example, castor oil is another wonderful thing to utilize. A lot of people have heard of castor oil packs, right? And so often I will put DMSO on top of castor oil, hi Sherry, to allow it to absorb deeper into the skin. But you have to take care because the contraindications of DMSO is because it pushes things through the skin. If you're treating something, you need to make sure that you're not pushing that infection or what have you into your bloodstream, right? So do your research, but those are wonderful things to utilize. Okay, so again, I just want to reiterate that if you're dealing with any type of psychic noise, infiltration, psychic warfare, entity attacks, even like a lot of people have these experiences. I used to have this a lot when I was a teenager, where it's just constant noise in the thoughts, like a barrage of thought forms and noise. Do a parasite cleanse. There will always be, first of all, if there's ever a physical parasite, there's always a matching etheric parasite. Okay? Everything that exists in the physical also exists in the etheric realm. But not everything that exists into the etheric realm also exists yet in the physical. So if you're dealing with anything physical, there will be a matching experience. I don't know if avatar is the right word for it, right? But we are multidimensional. So doing something physically will also do something etherically. So it's just a great way to help regain some of your self-agency. Okay? Now, another thing that's really, really important to get away from, guys, is I hope you get away from seed oils. Seed oils and glyphosate is mind-blowing if you go into the research on this. And if you start looking at products, there are so many products that contain seed oil. It's actually kind of overwhelming. So, start small. Though seed oil is like, the way your body experiences it is equivalent to like drinking gasoline. Okay, and I'm not over exaggerating here. Apparently, I wish I remembered the stat. I knew the statistic of like eating 3 French fries is equivalent to smoking a certain number of cigarettes. I mean, it's incredible, okay? And it's way easier to get away from seed oils if you are omnivore or a carnivore. It's very difficult as a vegetarian or a vegan to get away from seed oils, though it is worth it. So I hope you guys look into that. That's a big one too. So, okay. Now, I think that might be everything I want to talk about in regard to detoxing. So I'm being drawn to Bluetooth right now as well. So we've been talking about the body internet, right? And we've talked about detoxing. We've talked about the graphene oxide and all of these things. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about consciousness swiping and how this happens. And learning how to know when your consciousness is being accessed. And we don't want to make it so easy for them, which is one reason that we were chatting on, and a lot of us know we need to really start limiting our screen time because that makes it very easy for them. One of the best things that you can do, and I really hope all of you guys do it, is unplug your Wi-Fi router at night. That one's simple and it's huge, especially if you're dealing with inception, dream inception, and hacking. And so another big one, you're just letting them right in, guys. If you've got Bluetooth running around you, I know people that keep Bluetooth on all the time on their phone, and I don't even understand why. They're not necessarily just using it, it's just on. Or if you're using those Bluetooth earbuds, you know, like, I know it's annoying, but as much as I can, everything's wired in my life because I know how easy it is for them to access the Bluetooth and hack into your electromagnetic field. Now, I don't remember on a Droid, but on an iPhone, if you go and swipe down from the top screen to turn off your Bluetooth, that's not turning it off. It's simply momentarily disabling it. Your Bluetooth's still on. You got to go into your settings and turn it off. So a really, really easy one, guys, is to turn off your Bluetooth settings. Bluetooth is just such an efficient way for you to get hacked. And that can be an actual hacker, right? And etheric hacking, you name it. So, you know, sorry to burst your bubble if you're big on the Bluetooth earbuds, things like that. But, I mean, that one is just a really problematic thing. Bluetooth is really a problem, and you're just giving them full access. Okay, so I really hope we can get away from our Bluetooths. Now, okay, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, random thought. So, how many of you guys have ever had out-of-body experiences? I think I used to do it a lot as a child, and I know I used to get, you know, in Hawaii they call it getting pressed. When you have the experience where you're in a hypnagogic state, which is this state in between sleep and awake, in your body you can't move, right? You get locked down with your nervous system and your muscles, which I forget his name. There's a phenomenal t-shirt of out-of-body experiences. I think his name starts with Darius, if you guys know who I'm talking about. But he talks about how that's actually the exit point, and that's where we get scared. And so because we get scared, we stop the process of being able to then release out of body. And that used to happen to me a lot as a kid. Did that happen to you guys? It doesn't happen to me much anymore. Though I was just thinking about, you know, a phenomenal movie that woke so many of us up in such a big way, The Matrix, right? I think, what do you guys think? That the space of when they pull Neo out of the Matrix and they pull out, you know, the tubes and all of that stuff, I think that represents what we call being out of body, which is actually being in spirit, in the true form of spirit. And a lot of people who have experienced out of body talk about how once you have those experiences, it feels way more real when you're out of body than here. And so I was thinking about the way the movies flow, and I think that space is like what we term out of body, and then when we're plugged in, we're back in our sim, back in our physical avatar. So that was just an interesting thought I have, because I was always thinking about how does that correlate in real life. I understand like unplugging from the matrix, but what does that mean for actual physiology? So that was a random thought I had. Another random thought I had is, did you guys know that I think the percentage is 3%, but there is a general equal amount, apparently, there's a stat where redheads are about 3% of the population, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a small percentage, right? And then hermaphroditic, non-binary people are also that same percentage. And I was thinking about this. I thought that was really, really intriguing. I was listening to a talk by somebody who is an advocate for non-binary and hermaphroditism. That's how they were born. And they had a very interesting experience because their parents brought them up to associate as one sex, and then they got older and they really started kind of associating with the other, and then they found out why, because they were born both, right? Hermaphroditic. And there's lots of types of hermaphroditism, you know, it ranges from anywhere from genitalia to extra hair growth, you know. Though the speaker had, I believe they had given themselves a name, because a name they had given themselves related to the Anunnaki. And when this person gave that stat about non-binary having the same percentage in society as the redheads, I realized that this is Anunnaki and firebloods. Okay, so if you guys know anything about that, I thought that was super cool that the numbers had balanced themselves currently on the planet of the firebloods, which is going to be more of an angelic lineage, and then the Anunnaki, which, you know, if any of you guys know the Nibirian stories, is that form of extraterrestrial lineage. Now, shifting a little bit to talk of angels. I get into this a lot in some of my videos on YouTube, though I used to get triggered when somebody would refer to me as an angel. Oh, you're such an angel. I grew up Catholic. I grew up thinking that angels are all these benevolent guardians that are here to protect us and watch over us and care for us. Except for the fallen angels, as the stories talk about, right? One was Lucifer. And they were angels, obviously, that lost their way. Though I have had so many experiences with the angelic realm, and if you look at the literal translation, angel is simply a term that means messenger. And so angels, from my experience, also referred to as angels, multidimensional entities that have all different roles and identities. Some of them are from other dimensions and other planetary bodies, okay? And they are not all benevolent by any means. And, you know, if you look at the book of Enoch, that elaborates in the different heavens, you start to see that a lot of Christian believers perceive the word heaven synonymous with a space of bliss and protection of where we go in the afterlife that is like an earned place of rest. Though the book of Enoch talks of how the heavens are simply dimensional levels, and some of these heavens appear to be just that, benevolent. Some of them appear to be hellish, Some of them appear to be mechanical spaces. Okay, so there's a lot of mistranslations in these words. And that's something that I think is very important, because I know that a lot of people invoke angels and the archangels with the intention of receiving protection and guidance, and they pledge fealty and allegiance, as I did for a lot of years, to the archangels. And one big problem with that is, first of all, these are not the original namesakes. Either is the word God. It's not the original namesake. And the warning there is that because it's not the original word that holds the frequency of what you are intending to call on, other entities and beings can take on that namesake, just like there's millions of Chloes in this world, right? You know, doesn't mean that when you invoke Chloe, you're getting the one you want. Okay, so and a lot of us know that the quickest entities to access are the ones in the lower fourth dimension, are the ones you don't want to access, basically, because they're closest to our density. Now, I'm not saying by any means that you don't have a guardian angel and that there are not benevolent angels. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it is not a blanket statement for benevolence. Metatron is not a benevolent being. Okay, it's in the name, guys. Metatron. He is an ancient, archaic conveyor of the AI. Okay, and so, you know, things like this, some of the technology, some of the like the symbols that are used. For example, the flower of life. A lot of these mandalas are altered and they're fractured in a way that creates a, invocation's not the right word, but you know, you do, when you utilize these and you're assuming that they're protection, talisman, or what have you, they do activate the specific frequency of what it is, what it actually is, regardless of what you think it is, okay? And a lot of these are actually, if you look at them, they're the cubes, okay? They're the prisons. They are a container to hold in your energy. And so it's important to take care and do due diligence around the beings that you may be offering fealty to simply because you have been taught or read that that's what or who they are. And this includes the ascended masters, okay? Because a lot of these entities do not have our measly, 70 to 120 year lifespan. They live very long increments. I mean, look at the first book in the St. James Bible. I mean, that whole first book, all it is the surnames and how long they lived. And, they live upwards to 1,000 years, okay? We used to have a lot more longevity, and that's a blink of an eye compared to these entities. And so throughout the different centuries, they take on different names. And we've seen this a lot in like movies when they're showing, like for example, what's the name of the movie, The Guardians? The one with Charlize Theron. I really liked the first one, where they lived. They're immortal, but they do have the ability to die eventually, and they show throughout the ages how they take on different names, right? Because there's a replenishment. No one's going to necessarily remember them unless they're written in text and it's passed on through word of mouth or what have you, so they can change their identities and personas. So take care around the beings you're invoking. So the reason I started thinking about this today is I have spent a lot of time, first I spent years, decades, working with the angelic realm, and then I learned this for me. This is my belief system, and it changed everything for me, right? And then as soon as I revoked the archangels, I started getting massively spiritually attacked. I mean, massive. And it was like, you're out of the club. And something that happened, and again, I have videos on this, is as soon as I revoked the archangels, I lost my intuitive access. And that was immediate. I lost my sight. And I realized I was no longer in the club. I was no longer in the game, the gang, yeah. Therefore, I no longer was able to utilize the amenities. Now, sometimes I knew I was using the amenities. For example, when people and call on Archangel Michael, let me use your sword of truth. I'm not invoking you, Archangel Michael. I'm using you as an example right now. And I'm not saying he's not benevolent, right? If you guys have ever seen Max Spears' work, he talks about how Archangel Michael is actually from the planet Aldebaran, but I digress. Okay. So Archangel Michael is certainly warrior, okay? Though you're calling on and utilizing their tools, or you're having them work through you or for you. So in those moments, you know that you're accessing and invoking their powers to assist and support you. But my experience in general, I'm talking about, I thought that this was my divine access, and suddenly it was gone. And I realized, one, I hadn't even been tuning into my own abilities, because apparently they were all theirs. Okay, and I had to relearn real quick, because I was already a full-time practitioner, and it didn't take long, but that one really shocked me. But I realized how easy it is to be duped and think that you're tuning into your own true spirit, when sometimes it's not yours at all. And so that's something really interesting. And as soon as I revoked them, I got thrust into spiritual warfare because I was being attacked. And then that got me into a lot of study around demonology, because it's very important to study your enemy, right? And learning demonology, coming from a Catholic and Christian background, I was taught, and I've talked about this before, to fear demons, right? I didn't realize it at the time, but I had fear of them, and I judged them as evil and negative and to stay away from at all costs. And I had a student who was a practicing Taoist and he was well studied in Buddhism, and he taught me that in Buddhism, demons are thought of more as like wily coyotes. You might not want to necessarily turn your back on them and walk down the street without looking behind you, but you can just shoo them away to some extent. They didn't hold a fear of them, and as soon as he taught me that, I realized I'm giving them power. And so it shifted my perspective of them immediately. There is a saying that a demon can't make you walk in front of a truck, but a demon can trick you so you don't see the truck in front of you, okay? And so when you give them more power, it really gives them access into your field in a way to manipulate you, whether or not you're paying fealty to them or if you're fearing them. And I started doing a tremendous amount of revocation work around the archdemons, because if you read into the hierarchies, just like the hierarchies of angels, a lot of people know these, right? There are the hierarchies of demons, and a lot of times you're only dealing with the bottom feeders that have to pay their own fealty to the top honchos. And when you're only dealing with the bottom feeders, if there's a contract with a higher up, that contract is going to stand even if you clear out one of the minions, because they were just doing the dirty work of a higher up. So you start to learn these things. What I also learned is that they have earned respects. Just because they are the the inversion, like we talked about the other day, does not mean they have not earned their right to be there in their place. They are a polarity, an experience that apparently is required to some extent simply because they exist. And they will honor respects and earned rights if you know the law. So there is divine law and there is satanic law. And they are earned respects between these two opposing hierarchies. And if some of the minions, for example, if some entities or minions get out of line and start overstepping their rightful place, you can call on the law, if you know it, of the demonic realm and help the higher ups understand that these minions have no place here. Okay? In addition to that, if you have earned your own rights to, let's say you've broken all your contracts with the archangels and somebody comes at you or they come at you, you remind them of where you stand. Another thing that will happen is if you have earned your rights and other beings that are within their same laws come at you, you can tell the higher ups, even though it's for the demonic realm, that, hey, you better put them in check. They have no right to be here right now. And they will. They will come at them because they honor the law. Okay? And if you look through history, there's plenty of examples of foes and enemies working with respects for each other. It doesn't mean that they're partnering up. It doesn't mean that they actually wouldn't take an opportunity to undermine the other one, though they respect one another. It's not always the case, but when you're working within a legal system, it usually is. And that's an important thing to understand. I saw a video the other day of a young girl who is obviously Christian, and she, sweet thing, in Texas we say, bless her heart, bless her heart. She was writing out, in her words, she was writing out all the sins that she could think of she'd committed. And these were like what I would call minor sins. It was like the sin of watching the social media or like having a negative thought about somebody. And I thought it was really sweet. And she realized that she could take Satan to court. And as soon as I heard her say that, it made me think about, because years ago, when I was first learning metaphysics, I used to call divine law and divine court all the time, right? You can do that. You can invoke justice through divine will. You're not imposing it because unless you remember how to do it, you can call on divine law to impose justice. And you better be clear when you do it which side you're on, because that's going to call in justice for all parties. So if you still got your karma that you got to pay off, or you're just coming at this egotistically, even though you're spiritual, you're going to get a whop in the butt, okay? So just saying. Though, I'd call divine law, I'd call divine court. Often I'd even bring them in front of the council. That happened a lot. And I hadn't done that consciously in years and years, because for me, I think I do a lot of that just in dream time these days, right? And you don't have to always, once you learn the rights and your earned, the laws and your earned rights, you can just do it within your field. Though there's times where it's very important to do. And so she reminded me of this experience, and she called Satan to court, and she asked Spirit to give her a passage for each sin, okay? And so she would just read off the sin she wrote down, and then she'd open the Bible to a certain passage and read that out. And I thought it was the sweetest thing. And it's true, because it is legality, right? It's divine law. A lot of you, if we know the universal laws, all of the universal laws, though, if you don't know the law, it doesn't mean that you're not subject to it. And I tell my students this all the time. If you get pulled over by a police officer who says you ran that stop sign and you say, honestly, I didn't know a stop sign meant to stop, he's still gonna give you a ticket. Okay, so just because you're ignorant to the way it works does not mean that you're not subject to it. So that is just something I wanted to talk about, and I think that it can be helpful, especially if you're going through a lot of attacks, to understand that there is a space and a place in which you can free yourself up. If you start learning your actual rights and the laws and the ways in which they have access or don't. And you can invoke these laws and rights, and if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you can ask Spirit to assist you to do this so that you're not being taken advantage of or bombarded or what have you. And it can work quite swiftly, especially if you start thinking about a lot of the archdemons got to where they are because they've been contracting throughout all of the ages with lots of us and re-upping. I mean, some of them have so many contracts. Like if you've heard about, a lot of born again Christians talk about being the bride of Christ, okay? And there's also like the bride of Satan. And so if you look at this through demonology, and I've just done so many past life regressions, and you'll see, even looking back into times where, the deity of the time, the god of the time was like Moloch or Baphomet. And they would do all of these sex rituals, right? Or these offerings. And once you do a contract like that with an archdemon like that, they simply, because they're multidimensional, they'll track you through time and space and re-up on that contract sometimes every single reincarnation. So they really refortify it, and they gain a lot of power and a lot of dominion that way. So you have to know to go find those root contracts and clear them out, especially if you're like, why are they still here? I've done all this work. That's one big reason, because they've been, spreading out like a web throughout timelines, re-upping and refortifying these contracts and agreements. And so hopefully that'll help you, and you don't feel like you have to do them one at a time. You do not, though you have to have unwavering faith that it is so. That's a big part of it. If you need help with that, please feel free to visit my website and sign up for a one-on-one session, chloe-hudson.com. I'm happy to assist you in any endeavor like that. Hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. I will be back on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll see you then. Bye.